The Gold Coast, Queensland's crown jewel and a 60-kilometre long version of Bondi Beach with twice the tourists and half the class. Now, if there's anything you know about these videos by now, it's that everything I say is definitely the truth, so I'm not going to lie here. The Gold Coast beaches are sicker than your grandma on a skateboard. I mean, they call it surfers paradise for a reason. Even dungeon dwellers whose Saturday nights consist of eating 2-minute noodles and watching tentacle porn regularly don their SPF 50 to bake on the rim of the Gold Coast melting pot. The beaches here are good for anything you might want to do, from going for a swim to banging that girl you didn't think was worth a taxi fare back to the hotel. To be exploring the Gold Coast is to be pummeled with novelty every time you turn a corner, and there are all sorts of surprises to be encountered on the city's sandy shores. For example, let's say your friend Dave catches an incurable blood-borne disease. You look at him and think, wow, he just gets to lie in bed all day and do nothing. I want to try that. Well, on the Gold Coast, your wish will be answered, because if you don't end up with a mystery STI from the hopefully legal-age sex goddess you found on Cavill Avenue, there are tons of used needles you can accidentally prick your feet on all over this fine city. In fact, there are plenty of silly ways to get injured on the beaches here, ranging from cute little melanomas to jellyfish that make your head explode like a watermelon. I think that's what they do anyway. You know what the worst part is about being stung by a jellyfish? It's not the sting itself, it's getting pissed on afterwards. At least the lifeguards are usually pretty hot. It takes the bite out of getting pissed on if you want to bang the person doing the pissing. Anyway, if you need somewhere to shower after your, golden shower, it's time to wander behind the dunes to marvel at the Gold Coast's many kitschy erections. The city is filled with all sorts of wacky architecture with more fake Roman pillars than you can point a stick at. You can see where the developers were going with this, but as anyone that's been to Las Vegas can tell you, imitating fancy architecture doesn't change the essence of your clientele. You know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't fuck the horse. You probably could fuck this fish though, I mean, it's just asking for it. It could suck a golf ball through a garden hose with those dick-sucking lips. Anyway, what I'm trying to say here is that by all means throw up as many Roman pillars as you want, but at the end of the day your hotel will still be the staging point for 18-year-olds in MDMA trying anal for the first time. One of the Gold Coast's most famous buildings is the Q1, which is as emphatically impressive as it is impressively phallic, and at the time of its construction in 2006 it was the world's tallest residential building. Its major drawcard is that you can ride a fast elevator all the way up to the tip of its shaft, and from that bulbous knob you can look out over the vast urban wilderness that this city has become. If you look closely from all the way atop your ivory tower, you'll see the city's trams snaking their way through surfers paradise, which if you think about it also kind of look like cocks. These trams are a relatively new addition to the city, and they afford drug dealers from Logan easy access to the clubs of Cavill Avenue, where they can sit in a dark corner and sell talcum powder to schoolies for $450 a gram. The majority of residents here have been in favour of the tramline opening, except for old people who are often very vocal in their opposition to the project, presumably because they don't like things that are shaped like dicks. Homophobes, am I right? Incredibly, there are signs posted everywhere on the line that state no entry on tramway, trams accepted. Now you'd think this would go without saying, but so seething is their hatred of the trams that the elderly of the Gold Coast seem to be hell-bent on trying to cause as much carnage on the line as possible. But the thing is, driving isn't usually a good alternative here. Do you have somewhere to be quickly? Are you late for work? Are you having a stroke in the back of an ambulance? Well, fuck you. On the Gold Coast, you're going nowhere slow and don't even dare trying to turn around because everywhere is roadworks. The Pacific Motorway is in a seemingly perpetual state of upgrades, which at this point has become a never-ending story that's lasted so long even Falcor and Atreyu would get stuck in traffic. Every few years, one section is finished, which allows motorists to reach the next traffic jam a few minutes faster, and if you're unlucky enough to suffer from having children, getting stuck here will make you think very hard about getting a vasectomy. The good thing is there are plenty of places on the Gold Coast you can take your kids so they shut the fuck up. Tourist attractions include Ripley's Believe It or Not, where you definitely will not believe it, whatever the hell this horrible pink monstrosity on Cavill Avenue is, as well as a ton of theme parks. If you're fond of your children, you can send them to what is unobjectively the best theme park ever to exist, Wet n Wild. Conversely, if you hate your children and your wife, you can send them over to Dreamworld, where for the low price of $119 per person, you can have them decapitated on a flume ride. Tourism is obviously big business on the Gold Coast as well as one of its major employers, but is not the biggest employer. What is the biggest employer? Healthcare, which isn't all that surprising given that the second most popular crime is drugs and the second most common way of leaving Dreamworld is dead. Something that might actually surprise you, however, is that the average income on the Gold Coast is slightly lower than the national average, which you wouldn't pick by looking at the suburbs here. Everything is made to look luxurious on the Gold Coast, and excess seems to be the only valid metric of success for its residents. Many estates are filled with retired executives that only leave their gated communities to buy anti-wrinkle cream and laxatives. Toy dogs walk nervously alongside their Botoxed owners, serving less as pets and more as fashion statements. You need to be careful when you're walking through the parks here, otherwise you might find bits of Pomeranian stuck to your boot. Now, these people don't want a dog that can breathe properly, they want an animal that needs more medication in a single day than one person would need in an entire round of dialysis. I mean, if you've retired with millions, you may as well spend your money on something, right? And if it's not freaky little dogs, then it's freakishly lavish mansions perched on canals that are shallower than the city itself. They're the Roman aqueducts of the 21st century, except instead of fresh water, they're now mostly filled with e-bikes and the bodies of Victorian tourists. It's pretty phenomenal how much land gets wasted just because rich people want to live on water, but if that's something you care about, then your concerns will fall on deaf ears here. Housing crisis? What housing crisis? Nature always comes second to development on the Gold Coast, and so incessant is the relentless pursuit of urbanisation that even the cows get vandalised. Native fauna that are found to be trespassing on private property are swiftly whisked away to the Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary, which is really less of a sanctuary and more of a torture chamber for miscreant koalas where they can live out the rest of their days being tormented by the screams of jet engines until they die of either old age or suicide. There's just no room for anything that's not man-made on the Gold Coast, and nowhere is that more apparent than Cavill Avenue, which is the city's main focal point. During the day, it's little more than the world's biggest public toilet, but once the evening comes, it turns into a cacophony of buskers desperately trying to drown each other out. And among all the madness of vice and sin, this young man sits and waits for people to talk to him. He speaks his words of salvation, but most people here are too munted to understand English anymore. Tonight, this man sits alone. But he needn't worry. Most people end up meeting God one way or another on the Gold Coast anyway. Acid's pretty common, and so is getting king hit by a bikie, and the odds are you'll run into one of these charming chaps at some point during your Cavill Avenue adventure. Back in the 80s, the Gold Coast had gangs that were actually cool who ran the city, such as the Russian Mafia and the Yakuza, which is arguably the coolest gang ever to exist. But that fell apart, and what got left behind were the fucking bikies, the human equivalent of chihuahuas that smoked too much crack. Perpetually angry for pretty much no reason, in late 2013 tensions came to a head between two of the Gold Coast gangs, which led to an all-out brawl in Broadbeach. The bikie problem became so bad that, and this is true, clubs stopped letting in anyone that had visible tattoos. That means your skateboard riding grandma, who despite being 100 years old and unable to fight her way off the toilet in the morning, can't get into clubs on the Gold Coast just because she had a heroin phase. Fucking bikies, man. Look, despite all this, the bikies, the boats, the tits that surely can't be real, the Gold Coast is a pretty fun place. Its unabashed ridiculousness is kind of charming, even if it does have skin cancer and a drug problem. If I had to put it another way, the Gold Coast is like this peacock. It's big and flashy, and if it were a human, you just know it'd be a giant piece of shit. But on the same token, everyone has a mate that's a piece of shit. You need that mate sometimes, you know? He's the only one that always knows where to buy weed. Look, my point is that the Gold Coast is stupid, but if you're anything like me, you probably thoroughly enjoy snorting cocaine off a stripper's ass while security guards bang furiously on the door of the cubicle you've been occupying for the last 30 minutes. And if you're nothing like me and you want a quiet, family-friendly, drug-free holiday, then I have 6 words for you, my friend. Don't go to the Gold Coast. And now, a haiku. Sandy shores aplenty, opulence, pillars, and coke. My face is melting.